Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel. I have really enjoyed seeing everybody's end of year content for 2023 and everybody's favorite books of the year. So I decided it would be a good idea and a great way to kick off the new year by reading some other people's favorite books from last year. So in this video, I read from 4 different smaller booktubers that I personally watch a lot or interact with a lot on YouTube. There were a few others that I really wanted to read things from, but either they didn't have a favorites video that I saw or our tastes didn't perfectly align. Not that they had to perfectly align, but I wanted to pick things that I was actually interested in hopes of having a really good success rate for this video. So there were some videos that I just wasn't really interested in the books that they mentioned. Anyway, with that being said, I read 2 books from each creator, except I kind of cheated because 2 people mentioned the same 2 books, so I just did those 2 for them. But the 4 people that I read from were Michaela Reed's, Brooklyn's Library, Cliff's Dark Gems, and Aspen's Archive. So with all of that being said, I will just go ahead and get into the video now. Hope you guys enjoy.
I loved this book so much. I loved the writing. I loved Carissa Orlando's writing in this. I love the way that this author puts a spin on the classic haunted house story, where she totally takes the whole aspect of a haunted house. She almost makes a parody of it that's still a horror novel and still has very scary moments.
So I decided to start off this video with The September House, and I honestly didn't know anything before going into it except that it was like a haunted house story. And I feel like when I hear that books are a haunted house, I am not really inclined to pick them up. Not because I dislike haunted house horror or haunted house stories, it's just they're kind of meh for me. I don't know, I just don't really feel strongly inclined to read a haunted house story. So this one, I have seen so many people talking about it, but I never really stopped to really read the synopsis or really think about whether or not I want to read this. So I'm very, very glad that I got to read it for this video. I am on page 167. I just made it to chapter 14, which is very, very close to the halfway point. So you may be wondering, why did I not do an update before I got halfway through the book? The answer to that is simply because I am loving this. I'm literally obsessed with this book and this story and the writing and everything so far. I am loving it. So the prologue and the first chapter do a really good job of introducing us to the story and to the characters. And we have this woman, which I can never remember. Her name is Margaret, that's right. So Margaret and her husband Hal bought this house. It was described as their dream home, this Victorian era wraparound porch, beautiful home that they kind of made their own. But it has a little bit of a quirk where every September, crazy stuff starts to happen. The walls start bleeding and there are a lot of ghost children and some evil presence in the basement that we don't entirely know the entire story of that, but we know that that is a place to be avoided. But it's just really fun so far because she's lived in this house for 4 years now, and her husband just recently left because he said, fuck this, I cannot deal with the ghosts right now, I gotta go. But she has kind of just developed a routine, and she's like, oh, I know where to step so that I don't accidentally step in blood, and I know not to get too close to this little ghost boy, and I know what this little ghost girl is talking about. I don't know, it's just so funny how casual she talks about it all. It's just totally normal in her life, and I'm really, really enjoying that aspect of it. I don't know, I think it's so fun. I think the writing is really good as well. It is very fast-paced. It's very easy to read. You don't have to think too hard about the words that you are reading. But it's also funny. There's a lot of humor that's just kind of woven into the character's dialogue or the character's thoughts, and I think is done so well. And then you get the horror aspects of all the ghosts and the descriptions of the ghosts and the way that they appear, because they appear as the way that they were killed, which some are more brutal than others. And then we have this presence in the basement that we know is very evil and very dangerous, and I'm really excited to explore more of that story. Another interesting aspect in this book is, like I said, Margaret's husband has left, and we don't know the entire story of that, but we know they had a rocky relationship, and they have a daughter, Catherine, who is an adult who lives away from home, and she is alarmed that her father has been missing for like a month. He left like a month ago, and her mom never told her, so she makes a point to come to the house, but it is September, and so the mom, Margaret, is like trying to hide all these crazy things from her daughter, but obviously there's going to be a point where she can't hide it anymore. So I'm very excited to see that storyline as well. I think it's a very fun aspect of it, just, you know, this rational person coming into this home, and our main character doesn't really think anything of like all the ghosts and stuff, but obviously like that's not normal. So we'll see how that all plays out. The writing, the dialogue, the characters, the horror, the humor, like it is all 10 out of 10 so far. I am eating this book up, and I'm hoping to finish it tonight. Like I said, I've got halfway to go, so I'm gonna get to reading. You guys, I am absolutely blown away by this book. I have just made it to chapter 23, which is page 244, so I've got about 100 pages before the end, and I am loving it so much. Like, it really is crafted like the perfect horror story, because first of all, we get the haunted house, we get the ghost, we get those elements to it, and there are some very, very graphic and just eerie and creepy descriptions of the ghosts in this house and different things that are happening and the acts of violence that cause their deaths. But it's also a story about Margaret and Hal's relationship. We are learning a lot of things about their relationship and the horrors within that, and it's heartbreaking and it's hard to read, but it is so, so powerful. The writing, I think, is just absolutely exceptional. And learning more and more about their marriage and things that have happened really makes you connect with Margaret more and care about her story and really care about what happens, and just more interested to find out where this story is gonna go. So not only is it just the like writing and the writing style that I'm obsessed with, but I'm also really, really enjoying the way that the story is told. We are in the present day with Margaret and with her daughter, and they are trying to figure out what happened to Hal because he just left one night a month ago. But we also get flashes in between of, like I said, past things that happened in Margaret and Hal's relationship, and also their experience when they first moved into the house and their first encounters with some of these creatures. I think is very, very interesting and very well done, the way it flips back and forth, very like seamless transitions from one event to the other. Because I know sometimes in books where things like the timeline kind of flips, sometimes it can be confusing, but I think it's done really, really well in here. This is one that definitely deals with some hard and dark topics, so if you are sensitive to certain things, you may want to look up some of the things that this book deals with, because a lot of those descriptions are very sad and graphic and hard to read at times. But like I said, that all really helps you to connect with Margaret more and to care about the story more. But it is safe to say that I'm loving this so much. Like, I can't stop to put it down. I just want to sit there and read it all in one sitting, which is a really good sign. I think this will probably be a 5-star, but I still have 100 pages left, so I'm very excited to see how the story wraps up, where we get to in the end of the timeline with Hal being gone, and what the story is for Margaret and for her daughter as things progress in the house and more things are revealed. I'm really excited to see where it goes. So it has been a couple of days, and I just realized that I never did a final update for the September house. This was like the easiest 5-star probably that I've ever given, and I'm really, really glad that this was my first book of 2024. How amazing is that? I got a 5-star, and I feel like that is going to send good vibes for the whole entire rest of the year. Really, at the end of the day, this is just a fun and sort of, I don't want to say light horror, but it is silly and it's fun haunted house story to follow, but it also deals with a lot of dark topics and a lot of dark things in the characters' pasts. And there was also like the horror in it. Not only was it fun with all the different ghosts and just the way that the main character was like so chill about everything, but there were also some descriptions and some things that happened with the ghosts, particularly with the one in the basement, that was actually like creepy. Like I was like, ew, I hate this right now. Like I would probably die if that was me in that position. I just really, really love this. It was funny, it was scary, it was fast paced. Like I did not want to put it down the entire time that I was reading it. And I'm really, really glad that I decided to pick it up because, like I said, originally I wasn't interested in this book at all and I didn't really know a lot about it. I think this is a debut by Carissa Orlando, or at least her first like full-length novel, so I will definitely be keeping an eye out to see if she releases more things in the future because this was just absolutely like perfect in every ways, like the perfect horror book and everything that I wanted from it. And it really just kind of, I feel like, opens the door, at least for me, because I don't read a lot of haunted house stuff. So this kind of took a different direction than what you would traditionally expect when somebody tells you it's a haunted house or like a ghost story. So I really love that because now I will be more inclined, I feel like, to pick up haunted house horror in the future. Because of what this book has shown me about the genre or the subgenre. I don't know. I just loved it. Can you tell? 5 stars. Thank you, Michaela, and thank you, Brooklyn, for mentioning this book and having me read it, even though you didn't really have me read it, indirectly having me read it, because I loved it a lot, and I need to buy a physical copy now, so yay for me, spending money.
This is one that I recommend because it was so entertaining to read and I read it in one sitting and it was super quick and fast paced. And there's a twist at the end of this one that I did not see coming at all, so I really enjoyed that element.
So today I started The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, and I was really excited that this popped up because it has been on my Goodreads TBR for quite a while, so I was really happy that I could finally get to reading it. So I had no idea what this book was about before going into it, but we basically are following this married couple who don't have a very good relationship. Like honestly, their relationship is very strange, but the husband is involved with another woman and he often sees her at their like lake house, their vacation house. And so he's there with her one night and then he goes home to his wife and the police come to his door the next day because his mistress, the other woman, has been found stabbed to death in their vacation house. So obviously him being like the last known person to have seen her, they have some questions for him. But that's the part that's like confusing to me. The one part that I like can't really get behind so far in this book is like, it just seems like it's not how things are done. And yeah, I live in America. I know the cops aren't great, but like they like come to the door and they're like, we have to ask you some questions. And he's like, okay, what do you have to ask me? Because I'm questions about. And then they just like go off. They're like, yo, motherfucker. And they like handcuff him and start reading him his rights, which was really weird because they never said you're under arrest. Like they just said, come to the station for some questions we have. And then they start like arresting him, which is weird. And then they're like holding him in the interrogation room and like not letting him leave or like see a lawyer or like anything like that, which is like not how it works. Like they can't just hold you. I'm pretty sure like you can get up and walk out at any time, although they often like advise against that. But if you're not under arrest, they can't just keep you there. And they never said they were arresting him, but then they're like keeping him there. So I don't really understand that. But we just got to the point where his wife has been told what has happened. And then he's like, oh, I need a lawyer. And she's like, I'm your lawyer, because she does work as a lawyer. But I don't know how that's going to work either, how they're just going to let like this man's wife represent him in court and be his lawyer. I feel like there's a little conflict of interest there. So yeah, there's a few things that are not adding up quite so far in the book, but it is very fast-paced, which is what I want when I'm reading a thriller. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading and we'll see where it goes. I've heard it's one that gets like very twisty and there are a lot of reveals and twists and things that happen later on in the book. So I'm curious to see where that goes. So I finished The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose earlier today. I really don't have a lot to say about this book. That's why I haven't really updated you guys a lot. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Was it the best thriller I've ever read? Definitely not. Was it the worst thriller I've ever read? Definitely not. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would. If you can overlook like the logistics of it and the realisticness of a lot of it, then I think you can enjoy it. It was entertaining. It was very, very fast paced. They had short chapters. Like, you could definitely read this book in one sitting, and I think that is what I would recommend it for. I would recommend it for if you've got like a free afternoon, a couple of hours, and you want to read something that's entertaining and fast paced but not too serious, then I think this is the perfect book for that type of mood. You don't really have to think too hard about what is going on. Every character in here is absolutely horrible. Like I have said, there are a lot of things that are questionable with how realistic a lot of it is, and you could definitely sit here and nitpick everything. There are a few things that were maybe a little bit repetitive, but overall it did what I wanted from a thriller. It was messy, it was entertaining, and it was fast paced, and that's all I was expecting. Definitely don't go into this if you are wanting something that's gonna blow you away and have this crazy twist or this crazy amount of suspense. Like, no, this is messy and ridiculous, and I would recommend it if you want a messy and ridiculous thriller. I probably won't think about this book too much after this, but I am gonna give it a 3 stars because at the end of the day, I would still recommend it, so it's not all that bad.
This is more of like a character study, I feel, because not like so much happens, but like it happens. I love women just being up to no good.
So I started How Can I Help You by Laura Sims, and I'm about 75 pages in right now, which brings me to part 2, which is called I Struggle Sometimes. So far in this book, we have been introduced to 2 different women who are both kind of like starting a new life in a way. Our first character is Margot, but that's not really her real name. And she came from working like in the medical field. She was a nurse, and there are some suspicious things that happened with her at all of the various hospitals that she worked at, and the patients she cared for mysteriously dying. So now she's here, she's got a new name, and she's working at this library. And then this other lady, whose name I can't remember, Patricia, starts working there as like their reference librarian. And she is starting a new life in a way as well, because not only is she starting this new job, but she also like moved away from her boyfriend, so they're still in a relationship, but obviously they're not living together. She's kind of further away now because she wanted to pursue this job at this library. And they're both very, very interesting characters. There's definitely something off about the both of them. So I'm very curious to see like how their relationship develops and how they start to connect. Because right now we know that Margot is like a little bit unhinged. We know something happened in her past, and she kind of has this obsession with Patricia, but then we get Patricia's point of view, and Patricia has this obsession with Margot, but each of them thinks that the other one is like, I don't know, too cool, or like has this certain idea about them in their head that they're like, oh, we could never be friends, like, you know, she would never talk to me. And it's really interesting because they both feel that way about the other person. It's very much like an obsession that the both of them have with each other. So I'm really curious to see how that develops, and I'm really, really interested in getting more of Margot's backstory because I think that is fascinating, and I really want to know the depths and the real details of what happened. But also I want to know like what's going on with Patricia, because she seems normal on the outside. She doesn't have like a dark history or dark past as far as we know, but there's definitely something off there. So that'll be exciting to see. I am really, really enjoying it. It took me a little bit to get into the writing style and the story of it all, but now that I'm into it, it is like absolutely captivating. I can see why so many people love this. It has such high reviews on Goodreads because I looked before I started reading. So I'm really excited to keep reading. This is definitely one that when I'm not reading it, I am thinking about reading it. So I'm gonna get back to it and let you guys know how it goes from here. So I'm just about to finish How Can I Help You? I just made it to part 5, which is called Word After Word After Glorious Word. I've got about 25 pages left, but I just wanted to do an update before I do this last little bit because I am loving this book so much. Like, it genuinely might end up on my list of all-time favorite books because it's just that fantastic. Like, the writing is just beautiful and like gorgeous and so well done. I am fully and 100% invested in the story and the characters, and I think the way the characters are written is like absolutely fantastic, also because of the fact that we have like a dual point of view, but both of the point of views are very, very distinct and different. Like, I know if I'm reading Margot's chapter, like, that's Margot, and if I'm reading Patricia's chapter, like, that's Patricia. Like, they're just so different, I feel like, from each other. A lot of times when books have a dual point of view, they can be written very, very similarly, and then I'll kind of forget whose chapter I'm in, but that is not happening at all with this book. And I think it's done in such a good way for like telling the story itself, because even though like, you know, we'll have one event happen from Margot's point of view and then that same event happen from Patricia's point of view, it doesn't feel repetitive at all, like I said, because the different point of views are so vastly different and you can really like tell that these are two different characters. But also the story itself is just like really fascinating for some reason. It really is just a story about obsession and unhinged women and the way that their lives connect in a very strange way. But I am loving it so much. I think the writing is absolutely fantastic. I have never heard of Laura Sims before this book, but it does look like she has another novel out, so I might have to look that one up and see what it's about because I'm eating this up. Like, this is a very deeply psychological suspense story of obsession, and it's absolutely fantastic in every way so far. So let me finish the last 25 pages or so because I'm really curious to see how this is all going to wrap up after the events that have conspired in this book. And I'll let you guys know my final rating, which I'm sure will be a 5-star, and I'll let you know if it does or doesn't make it into my all-time favorite book list. I know I'm sitting in the exact same spot, so it probably looks like 0 time has passed, but it is slightly later because I've finished the book now, and this is absolutely going in my all-time favorite books now. Like, I am shocked. And can we just say thank you to Brooklyn and Michaela, because not only did I get a 5-star with the September House, but obviously we have another 5-star and a new all-time favorite book. So clearly I need to be taking recommendations from them more often because like this book was amazing. Literally the end, like I don't know how I didn't see what happened coming, because like I feel like looking back it's like, okay, I definitely could see it progressing in that direction, but I thought it was gonna go one of two ways, and I was really hoping for one way more than the other. So this totally took me off guard and I was shocked. I literally flipped the page and I was like like audibly gasped and was like, what? Like, and I don't know the last time that I've ever been shocked like that by a book. And I think this definitely is the way that I want my like reading taste to go in the future as far as thrillers. I do enjoy reading thrillers, but I feel like I used to enjoy them a lot more because I feel like the more thrillers you read, the less shocking they become as you go on, because a lot of them are the same type of plot twist or the same type of characters and same type of situations happening. So recently I've been reading thrillers and really just giving them all like a 3-star rating because I know they're good and I would recommend them, but I'm just kind of like, for me personally, I'm like, meh. I used to really be into domestic thrillers, but I think this is where I want to go when it comes to reading thrillers in the future, is like something very psychological, like full of suspense and like so fully immersive with such like vivid characters, Also, the feeling of this is almost like, I don't know if cozy is the right word, but it's like you have this small cast of characters. The book takes place either at the library or at Margot's apartment. And I feel like that is just all very cozy because there's not a lot of crazy things happening, but the story itself is so captivating still, despite not having a lot of different settings and a lot of different characters and things like that. Yeah, I would describe it as sort of cozy and like slow and immersive, but deeply psychological and just absolutely fascinating. So well written, and I'm so happy that I picked this one up. I just realized there was water drops on it. Whoops, good thing it's wrapped in plastic. Also, I think it was so fun. I know myself and a lot of people really enjoy books that have book elements within them. So obviously taking place at a library really gives you that feeling of like, oh, they're talking about books and they're talking about reading and all this stuff. And they talk about Shirley Jackson in here, specifically the book We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which I thought was really fun. If you've read that and really enjoyed it, then I think that'll be just like a fun element to read about. But I am delightfully surprised by this book, and I'm really glad that I read it, and I'm just so happy now.
Now, although this was an extreme novella, violence and the gore and everything wasn't gratuitous as I thought it would be. Instead, what I got was a beautifully written, sometimes deeply disturbing, and yes, it can be gory at times, but it's just so beautifully written.
So last night I started Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. I don't even know if you can see that. It looks really dark, like in person. Not that it's important anyways, but I got, I think, almost 40% of the way through last night. And I don't know if it was just because it was really late at night and I was reading it in a dark room by myself, but it was really actually creeping me out. Like, just the way that things are described and the setup of the story, you know that something bad is going to happen to these characters. So I was thoroughly creeped and very scared of what's going to happen in the later part of the book. Okay, I literally have a note from page 8 where I said, this is already filling me with dread, and we weren't even into the story yet. So I didn't say what this is about, but we have Lori, who is really obsessed with like true crime and serial killers, and so she starts writing to the serial killer in jail and goes to visit him in person sometimes and just really develops like this relationship with him. And so he asks her to go to his little like shack area on the river and retrieve this key and then pass it along to the riverman. So she doesn't really entirely know why she's doing this, but her obsession is that deep with this person that she decides that she's going to do whatever he says. So now we are on this journey with them as they go and try to do this, but it's really creepy and ominous because as far as the story goes, like, we just think the Riverman is just this person that lives out on the river and he doesn't really have a name. He's just known as the Riverman. But knowing by the synopsis and obviously the fact that this is an extreme horror book, that tells us that all is not what it seems with the Riverman. And I think the Riverman is this entity, this non-human entity that is very evil. So I am really intrigued by that aspect of it. We also have Lori traveling with her sister Abby. Abby is disabled. It doesn't say explicitly what her disability is just yet, but we know that she is 42 years old. She definitely does not act 42, and Lori is her primary caretaker, and she lives with Lori. And we also are getting these little flashback chapters, and we know that the two of them had a brother, and maybe something happened to him when they were children. There is definitely something weird going on with that element of the story, but the flashback chapters were a really nice surprise. I was not expecting to get that, but I'm really enjoying it because it gives you a little bit of an insight into what these two girls were like when they were children, and obviously we're going to unfold the story with their brother here. So I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, it did have me a little creeped and unsettled when I was reading it very late at night, so I decided to go to bed. But I'm going to finish it today because it is a pretty short book. I think it's less than 200 pages. So I'll let you guys know how it goes later on. Literally disgusting, repulsive. I am gagging, and I'm not even done yet. I'm 80% of the way through Gone to See the Riverman now, and this book is like horrible, but also great. Horrible with the content of the book and the descriptions of things that occur in here, but also great in the way that it's written and just the entire tone of the book. Like, it's hard to put it in words, but the tone that it's written in does such a good job of making you feel exactly what it intends to make you feel, and really like getting under your skin and making you feel all the disgust and the anger and the sadness and the horror of it all. And I think that's freaking fantastic. But I'm not gonna lie, like, some of the things that are occurring in this book, some of the things that are happening are very, very difficult to read, especially in such great description, but it is extreme horror, so I knew that going into it. Definitely with this book, as with all horror and all extreme horror, I feel like you should definitely check trigger warnings before going into anything if you know that you may be sensitive to certain subjects. There are a lot of difficult subjects brought up in this book, but I really, like, it's hard to talk about without, like, not spoiling it, but it's just hard to talk about what is occurring because that stuff is like slowly unfolding to the reader as you go through the story. And I think it's brilliant the way that it's done and all of the connections that form in your brain as you're reading and learning all these new things about the characters in the book. I think it's fascinating. I really, really enjoy stories, whether it's a movie or it's a book or a TV show or whatever, with people who have had like a dark event happen in their childhood, like an accident or the death of a sibling or, you know, something else like weird and dark trauma from their past. I think is a really, really fun element and something that I really enjoy in a lot of media. So this book has a lot of that. It is very safe to say that I am really, really enjoying that aspect. But I'm also like scarred, and I will probably be scarred for life. And with that being said, I already know, like I said, I'm like 80% of the way through, and I already know once I finish this, like I'm definitely reading the second one. I might need to take a little mental break between the two, but I'm definitely going to do that. And this is going really, really well so far, despite being absolutely disgusting and literally traumatizing. So I finished Gone to See the Riverman, and I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, even though it deals with a lot of difficult things. I really liked the way that it was written, and the tone of the entire story throughout really adds to like the atmosphere and the horrifying vibe to the whole story. And for me, like extreme horror, I have to kind of care about the story or the characters or something. Like, I'm not a big fan of extreme horror that is just gory and disgusting for shock value, although there's nothing wrong with that if that is what you are into. But for me, when I read extreme horror and I read things that deal with topics such as this book deals with, I want to actually be interested in the story somewhat and invested in the characters' lives. And I definitely was with this one. So like I've said already before, this book definitely deals with some dark and some disturbing and horrifying topics, but I think it did so in a really good way that really added to the story and the character development and the way that the story progressed. I think it was all done very well. I really enjoyed the pacing of the book, the writing of the book, like I've already mentioned, and it was overall a positive experience for me. But obviously, I think I've mentioned this already, to look up trigger warnings if you need to. There is a lot more that I wish I could say about this book, but I can't because it kind of spoils what is revealed in the story with the characters. But I did really enjoy the way that it went. I did not see it coming from the beginning, but I really, really enjoyed it. And the ending has me very curious of what the second book is going to cover and what is going to be happening in that one. So I'm going to pick that one up as soon as I can, but I think I'm going to give my brain a little bit of a break and let the first one kind of settle with me. But I did really, really enjoy it. So thank you, Cliff, for this recommendation, even though technically you weren't recommending it to me.
I think this book has a lot of layers and a lot of things that aren't explicitly told to you that if you kind of absorb and understand as you're reading. They add so much to the story. It felt like serious topics, but in a very digestible presentation.
So, I am 214 pages through Black Sheep. I have just made it to chapter 13, and I did not intentionally make it this far in the book and not update you guys, but what happened was I got the audiobook on Spotify so I could listen to it on my way to and from work today. But then I had a really weird work day where a lot of it was like paperwork and sitting at the computer, which is very unusual for me in my job. I'm typically up on my feet a lot. So I was listening to the audiobook a lot at work while I was doing some stuff, and then I read it physically while I was on break, and now here we are, page 214, like how many pages till the end? Like 70 pages till the end, I think, because it's like 280 something. So I'm enjoying it. It's a little bit different than what I thought it was gonna be. I thought that it was gonna be a lot darker with a lot more like deep secrets coming out. This is basically about this girl. I'm not gonna look. What's her name? Vesper. I was like, I know she has an unusual name. Her name is Vesper, and she was raised in this very small town in a very like religious community, and her mother is still there, and her mother's also like an actress who is really popular in the horror community, so love that. Her father, she never really knew who he was, and the community was very, very into this particular religion, and she was not vibing with it. So when she was 18, she left, and now she is 23, and she gets this invitation to her cousin's wedding, and she assumes that her cousin sent the invitation, but once she gets there, she finds that it wasn't sent by her, and she doesn't really know who sent it. But she goes back to this town and this community and starts to learn some secrets about certain things there and certain things relating to her life and her family life. And she ends up leaving again, just kind of in the middle of the night. Not really the middle of the night, but it was nighttime, and she just kind of got up and left after learning some things, and she went back to her normal life, and now she is learning some things in her normal life that she can no longer avoid, and it really makes sense for her at this point, knowing what she knows, to go back there. It, like I said, is a little bit different than what I was expecting, specifically with like the religion itself, which I'm not going to say what it is because the synopsis doesn't say what it is, but it's not that difficult to guess. But I was hoping that it would be like a religion that was like made up for the book, but it's not. And I was hoping for something darker because it seems like a little bit silly, but at the same time, like Rachel Harrison is known for like light, silly, fun horror, so I'm not criticizing it too much. I will say it really didn't feel like horror until about like halfway through, and then we get this big reveal, and then it like turns into this kind of silly thing, but also a little bit more of like a horror story than I guess I thought the first half was. Overall, I am enjoying it, but I'm a little bit worried that there's only like 70 pages left because I feel like things are gonna wrap up like too quickly, and I have to say, like, I'm really enjoying like the whole vibe of the book and like learning about this community and this cult and all the different characters like involved with that and different things. I am really enjoying learning about, and I wish that we got more of that or more glimpses into like Vesper's past while she was growing up within this cult. But it seems like, I don't know, like I said, because we're getting close to the end, I think things are going to wrap up fairly quickly, and I might be a little bit sad when it ends because I kind of want it to just keep going. And being 280 pages, it is relatively short for like a full-length novel, but that's kind of nice. I kind of like it. I don't have too much more to say about it at this point. It just really is reminiscent of other Rachel Harrison books where they're light and they're silly and they have interesting characters and creatures and different things within them, but they're also funny. The main character is funny. I really like her, and a lot of the quotes have kind of made me laugh. With that being said, I'm gonna go finish Black Sheep. Can we take a moment for this beautiful hardcover from Aardvark though? Like the spine, oh, love that. Anyways, I'm gonna go finish this and tell you guys my final thoughts once I get done with it. So I finished Black Sheep and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think I enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed Rachel Harrison books in the past, where they're just like a light, silly horror. I did enjoy a lot of the elements in this one, specifically with like the cult and some of the rituals and things. The ending I enjoyed as well. It went a different direction than I thought it was gonna go, but I still did really, really enjoy it. But for me, it was just a 4-star. I would recommend it. I did have fun reading it, and I guess I'm gonna have positive thoughts about it, but it's not like a crazy, oh my god, this book is so amazing, 5-star favorite for me. But it was enjoyable, and I would recommend it, and I'm sorry I don't have more to say about it.
This book is just a classic science fiction fantasy comedy, and yeah, it's highly recommended for anyone that's got a pulse, basically.
We are on to our last book for the video now, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. My library had a few different editions, but I picked this one up because I love the cover, first of all, but then I didn't realize that there's all kinds of like illustrations and things inside, which I'm really enjoying. They're just fun little additions to the story. This is a book that I've been meaning to read forever, so I'm glad that I'm finally getting to it. Basically, the story starts off with this guy, I can never remember names, Arthur, and these people show up at his house and they're like, we're tearing your house down to build like this highway thing. And he was like, I don't know about all that. And then his friend comes and is like, oh, well, it's fine because the world's gonna end, so just come with me. And so they destroy his house, but then shortly after, the entire earth gets destroyed. So this guy Arthur and his friend get onto this alien spaceship. He finds out that his friend actually is an alien and has been on Earth for 15 years. He said he was like coming to Earth for a little bit of a vacation, and then he ended up getting stuck there. So now they are on this alien ship hitchhiking their way out, and it's really interesting because his friend is kind of editing this book that exists, which is called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which has a massive amount of information about anything and everything in the entire universe. But as things change, different people make edits to it, so now this character is making edits to it. And we are just following them on this really crazy journey as they encounter different aliens and different characters, and they end up on different spaceships and in different areas of the universe, and it's really fun. Right now I'm on page 194, which is chapter 21. I keep doing that where I like read too much of the book before I update you guys, because I'm pretty close to the end now. But I'm really enjoying it. Like, I don't know, it's funny. There have been a few things that have made me like actually laugh out loud. I am really enjoying like all the adventure and all the different things that they're encountering, the different characters in here, and the different things that are brought up. Obviously, at its core, I feel like this book is just really a message about what it is to be a human, and it's very interesting, a lot of the things and different quotes that have been stated. My favorite part, I think, just happened, which was with this whale. They're talking about this whale. Against all probability, a sperm whale had suddenly been called into existence several miles above the surface of an alien planet. And then they're saying the whale had very little time to come to terms with its identity as a whale before it then had to come to terms with not being a whale anymore. And they go through this whole page of like his dialogue, or the whale's like inner thoughts from the very spawn of his existence until the very end. And it's really interesting because he's saying, hello, why am I here? What's my purpose in life? What do I mean by who am I? And he's going on discovering different parts of his body. And so he's just, like it says, coming to terms with his existence, and then he hits the surface and he's gone. And then I really like the paragraph at the very end where it says, curiously enough, the only thing that went through the mind of the bowl of petunias as it fell was, oh no, not again. Many people have speculated that if we knew exactly why the bowl of petunias had thought that, we would know a lot more about the nature of the universe than we do now. And I really like that, and I think that's really interesting. Like, I don't know. There are a lot of discussions that could be had with a lot of things that are talked about in this book. And this is definitely a book that I feel like could be enjoyed at any age. I don't think it's targeted for a specific age range, but it definitely is one that I think any age group could really enjoy. Just the silly things that these characters are getting into. Once again, really enjoying the illustrations. Here's that whale that we were just talking about. So I think that's a really fun addition to this 42nd anniversary publication. I don't know what the correct word is. Anyway, it is going well. I'm going to keep reading and I will come back with my final update, my last update for the video once I finish this. I just had one more little note about this. I listened to a couple of chapters on audio when I was at work earlier, and I think the audiobook is really good. The narrator does different voices for each of the characters, which is so fun, but the voice specifically that he does for this little guy, his name is Marvin, I feel like is perfect. Like, just looking at the illustration and listening to the way the narrator voices him is like the perfect voice. And physically reading that, I've started to read it in that same voice and that same tone, which I think is so fun. So I would recommend the audiobook as well. Just off of the few chapters that I did listen to, I really enjoyed it. I finished The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and I loved it. I can definitely understand why it is such a well-loved book and how it has held up over the years. Not only is it like a fun and silly sci-fi, but obviously there is a lot of things spoken about in terms of life and the universe and being a human and just like existing in the universe that I thought was really, really interesting. Another one of my favorite parts was chapter 23. It says, "It's an important and popular fact that things are not always what they seem. For instance, on the planet Earth, man had always assumed that he was more intelligent than dolphins because he had achieved so much. The wheel, New York, wars, and so on. While all the dolphins had ever done was muck about in the water having a good time. But conversely, the dolphins had always believed that they were far more intelligent than man for precisely the same reasons." And there's just a lot of fun little things. Like, it's a sci-fi, but it's like a philosophical sci-fi. A lot of adventure. The humor also was like perfect. Like, I laughed out loud multiple times when reading this, and I just love when a book can like make you audibly react to something, whether it's laughing or being horrified or being shocked or whatever. In this case, it was just really funny, a lot of different things. There was also a really fun element towards the end with this computer personality. His name is Deep Thought, and it's basically supposed to be like the smartest computer in the universe, and they want to ask it what the meaning of life is, but they don't know how to phrase the question. So the computer provides them with this answer, but they don't know what the actual question is in order to get that answer, which I thought was really, really interesting. And just the personality of the computer itself really reminds me of like Robert Heinlein, like The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. The computer in that, I know it's a character in like some of his other books as well, and I really loved that little computer personality, so I really like this one as well. I just think it's a really fun thing in sci-fi when there's like computers or AI or something that has like its own mind and personality and becomes a character in the story. I think is so fun, and I really, really loved the concept of like them having the answer to the universe but not having the question to go with it. It was just really, really fun. I could definitely see myself rereading this in the future. I think I will buy a physical copy so that I can annotate it whenever I get to rereading it, because there were a lot of different quotes and things that I really enjoyed, and like I already mentioned, specifically with this edition, I really loved the illustrations in it. I think are so cool. The inside cover has like this colorful illustration as well, which is really fun because then in the back they include this, which is like a key to all of the characters. So that is the background illustration blown up, and all of the characters have their names and things listed down here, which is really fun, even though they're not like characters that are a main part of the story. It's just interesting to see the different creatures and aliens and things of this universe. So it's safe to say I really enjoyed it. I always knew this was going to be a book that I was going to read it and be like, why did it take me so long to read this? And I knew that it was going to be a book that I was most likely going to give 5 stars. So I think I am going to give it 5 stars. Like I said, it was just very enjoyable all around, and I definitely feel like it stands the test of time and is going to be well loved for many, many years to come, and I'm really glad that I read it. But with that being said, that was the last book for this video, which means this video is over. So once again, everybody that I read from will be linked down below, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'm really excited to start a new reading year and find some new favorites. I've already got one favorite thanks to this video, so thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys next time.